This is episode 113 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Cade, and today Valerie Ormond, author of the Believing in Horses series, returns to the show. Saddle up for a conversation on revisiting a series after 7 years away, the importance of winning awards, and how trips to various dude ranches inspired Valerie to write her newest book, Believing in Horses Out West. Valerie retired as a Navy captain after a 25-year career as a Naval intelligence officer, and then founded her own business, Veteran Writing Services, LLC, providing companies and organizations professional writing, editing, and consulting services. Valerie's first two novels, Believing in Horses and Believing in Horses 2, won 8 national and international awards, including gold medals in the Military Writers Society of America Book Awards. Her most recent novel, Believing in Horses Out West, won first place in the National Federation of Press Women's at-Large Communication Contest and is currently being judged in the national competition. Her fiction and nonfiction stories and poems have been published in 8 books, and her articles have appeared internationally in magazines, newspapers, and blogs. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Cade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Cade, and today Valerie Ormond is returning to the show. Hi, Valerie. Welcome.
Hi, Carly. It's great to be back and good to see you again.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. We have a new development in your book series to talk about, which is very exciting. Valerie's been on the show before, and we had a great conversation, and this time we have a new book. But before I jump into the questions about your books, Valerie, any cool developments since we've last talked in your horsey world?
Well, I still have the 3 horses, so and especially having one at 29, that's a pretty good.
That's
being
incredible.
able to say that is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of stopped competing, which has been a very cool development for me. So I, just enjoying the horses and trail riding and riding them here and there, and we had. One of our horses, Lucky, the star of the books, he was injured, had a suspensory injury in both hind legs. And the vet told us, he'd never be a riding horse again and he'd never recover. But fortunately, my husband is tenacious and a very hard worker, and rehabilitated him in 2 years. And we tried these kind of new braces that Horsepower puts out. Wow. And he's recovered. So, and we're riding him again. So it's a great news story, which, started as a very bad news story because he was our youngest horse and our show year horse. And just, so that's a good news story.
I am so happy to hear that. I mean, when something goes wrong with our fur babies, it certainly can rock our world. And you mentioned braces. So yeah. What did your husband do with the braces? They actually strap them to the back legs, or?
Right. We now have a friend borrowing them because one of her horses has a suspensory issue too, and they just happen to be like exactly the same size. And I told her, I said, they're really easy to use. If you can build an airplane, you can use these things. Because they are and my husband happens to be a pilot. He's very handy, but they strap to the bottom legs, but there are a lot of steps, and it has to be put it at this angle for this much time, and this has to go here, this has to go there. I mean, they come with very good directions and everything, but if you're not sort of mechanically inclined, they may not be the easiest thing to do. So I was, again, very lucky that I had somebody who could do that. And I mean, he showed me how to do it, and I did do it, but he was definitely carried the huge bulk of the effort. It's called Horsepower is the company. So, and if anybody wants to look at it, I can send you a link for the show notes if you want. It's because it really is kind of revolutionary. It's new, and they did a lot of research, and it saved our horse. So that's my one data point.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I will certainly include that in the show notes because, who knows? I
Yeah.
mean, this development in technology that can help our horses get through something like a suspensory injury is really incredible. So people will definitely want to know about that, I'm
Mhm.
sure. And then, I love that you said that you've kind of taken a step back from competition and you are just enjoying the horses. I, in fact, have done that now that my horses are, or that Sissy's gotten a lot older. I've taken a step back. I tried it out. I dipped my toe in, and I decided, I think I'm having more fun just trail riding and being with them and exploring new different avenues rather than the show world. Why did you decide to take a step back? Well, Lucky obviously was injured. I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really a huge competitor anyhow. I
Hmm.
just I was in the National Capital Adult Equestrian League around here for 9 years, and that's where barns compete against other barns. It's well, sort of like the kids do, but adults do it, and so it was really pretty fun. But I just came to a point where I didn't want to jump anymore, and you had to jump to compete. And I said, you know what, this is it's everything has its time. I took it, and
Hmm.
we get these signs from somewhere, and I took a pretty hard fall off of one of the horses while we were practicing. Because you don't ride your own horses in these
Oh.
competitions. It wasn't a competition; it was a practice, and I said, this there's really a message here. The funny part of that story is I will go on and say that. So I ended up picking up dressage instead, and I went
Oh.
to my first show with Lucky, dressage show, and he tripped and fell. And I fell, and that was the first time I'd ever fallen in competition. So,
Oh
you
my.
never know. But I didn't get hurt, so it's
Hmm.
just kind of a funny story.
Goodness, but yeah, and the signs, right? So good on
Mhm.
you for noticing the signs and saying, okay, let me look at this and really take a step back and decide what's right for me and my
Mhm.
animals. I think that's a really fabulous thing. Sometimes we don't pay attention to those things and we blow through and we just keep running, full speed, and then something happens. So you were
Yeah.
wise to take a step back and take a look at
Yeah,
that.
and I had a good show, times with Lucky, and I finally showed Chance, my old guy, the one I told you about, the 29-year-old. He had a really nice show. We got two ribbons, and
Oh,
it was very fun. And so I just said, okay, you know what else do I need to do?
that's fantastic. That's the perfect end note, right? The 29-year-old and two ribbon or a few ribbons, you can't beat that at all. That's
Yeah.
lovely. And then I love what you're up to. You are the CEO of your own company. You're an author. You do a lot of writing and you do a lot within the military. I was able to advance read your newest book before it came out. I really love the angle that you're taking your series. But before we jump into the new book, talk to us a little bit about how many books you've written so far and how many books you think will be in your Believing in Horses series.
Well, my first book was Believing in Horses, and I guess I should show and tell.
Yes,
Um,
please.
so here's Believing in Horses, and this book was focused on rescuing horses. So
Mhm.
the young girl in here she gets this new horse Lucky, and he's a handful, kind of like the girl right here who got the horse Lucky. He was a handful. No, anyhow, but while she was looking for him, she came across these 10 horses in an auction pen that needed to be rescued. So her mission is to how is she going to save these 10 horses? Oh, and she's 12 years old.
Mm.
So that's what that book is about. Believing in Horses 2. There. This one is about equine therapy. There we go. Yeah. And you see down there, there's a saluting man and this horse, and that's because her father's in Afghanistan. She's in a military family, and that started in the first book. Towards the end of that second book, the first book, there's something that happens that kind of scares her, and so thinking about her father. So by the second book, she says, I need to do something to distract myself from all this. So she ends up deciding she's going to show in the biggest show series in Maryland. But then while she's checking on one of the rescue horses, that she saved from the first book, she is introduced to equine therapy, and so she says, "Wow, this is pretty neat too. I'm going to do everything I can." So that's what she does in that book, and she wants to make her dad proud when he comes back from Afghanistan. So now the whole series is right now. I plan. So I did the third book. I know we're going to talk about the third book. Right now, I'm planning on 5 in this series because
Fantastic.
in the first book she saved 10 horses. So I've already accounted for in the first 3 books 5 of them, and so I've worked out the next book is going to be about the thoroughbreds.
Mhm.
the two thoroughbreds she saved. And I have a really great angle for that. I want to have her take them one to the retired racehorse project. Actually know the founder of that and was at the very first one that was here in Maryland. So that's the first one, and the next one. And then the last one's going to be about the ponies, and it's
Mhm.
going to turn out that they're Chincoteague ponies.
Aw.
And in between, I haven't figured out in which book. There's one of them became a police horse, and so there's going to be a somehow that one's going to work its way into either one of the books. And we're going to find out that he's okay too. That's it for now. And the thing is, I live here in Maryland. Chincoteague's right up the road,
Mhm.
and I started reading the Misty of Chincoteague books way back when, and it was a great inspiration. So I think it's fun to have that come kind of full circle and sort of a salute to Marguerite Henry. Both of these books are going to be fun coming up.
That's fantastic. I love that you're planning out and extending the series. I love your main character. She's so feisty, and there's always such a positive message inside the books, and the things that you cover with horses. I mean, how fun is that? And now, Believing in Horses Out West. This one was close to my heart because it was all about the Western lifestyle, and there were cute cowboys and great horses. And so why don't you go ahead and tell us about the third book in the series, Believing in Horses Out West.
Okay. Sadie Navarro, she is the main character in the first two, and she's the one who rescued the horses. And so she finds out that one of the rescue horses, Sunny, a mare, quarter horse mare, Palomino mare, is heading to a ranch in Montana that she knows nothing about. And so she decides, well, she gets help from her dad and her mom, and they end up going out to it's a dude ranch is where she's going to go out there to check on the mare, just to make sure she's okay, and make her feel better, because she felt like she kind of had lost track of the mare, which she really didn't. But she's 14 by now, and so that's what happens. So she goes out to the dude ranch out there. She meets some friends, both boys and girls, and learns about the ranch life, and also encounters a mystery that she needs to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So
It was awesome, and the family supports her in all her endeavors around the horses. So they had a really cool family vacation, and they brought the grandma along on top of everything else. And she was part of the sleuthing with Sadie. So I love that family dynamic that you intertwined with it too. Tell us about the cover. What inspired the cover
okay,
design of this book?
all right. Well, I'll show you the cover.
Mhm.
And so it's lovely. You and I have talked a lot about silhouettes in the past. I like to let my readers figure out what the character looks like. So, but this one is the first time I've self-published, so I had to kind of figure it out on my own, and I just knew to go to the experts, so I did. And I found Christine Horner, the book cover whisperer, via Ingram Spark. It was, she was one of their recommended people. There's a lot of them, but I just looked at what she had done, and something about, I just liked the way she presented herself. Turned out she was wonderful to work with. I ended up sending her some book covers. I told her what I wanted. I told her what the story was about. Really not much more than the blurb. She said, that's usually what works best for me is just that. And there was sent her some art, like Tim Cox art. You're
Oh,
probably
I
familiar with
love
him.
Tim Cox art.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen the one of the cowgirl riding a paint horse across the
That's the one I sent her.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I
yeah,
love that picture. Yeah.
I do too. And I said, I know I can't afford to buy this, but anyhow, so that was a very, very much an inspiration. And then she was, graphic designers, they're so amazing. The thing is on here, the old Western font you see there, like an old Western movie, and this little curly Q thing in there, just which also goes through the interior. So just things like that. And she was great to work with. We talk about going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, different tweaks, and I didn't really I just expected the interior to look like a book. But she did a lot of really neat touches that made it just more than I could have hoped for. So
Oh, fantastic. So she's the book cover whisperer. Is that
right, yeah, I'll send you her link too.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. But
yeah.
but she also did your interior formatting, it sounds like. Is that so? She did the
Yes.
whole thing. This is the value of working with a designer, right? I mean, look at how pleased you are. You made an investment in your book. you got a cover that you love, and the interior you're really happy with
Mhm.
too. So it's worth the investment to work with a
Yeah.
designer on our books. And I
Right.
think she captured it perfectly. And I love that you used Tim Cox art as an example of it. He does
Yeah.
really beautiful Western lifestyle horse art.
He does.
I'll
Yeah.
probably put a link in the show notes to that too, because his stuff is really beautiful.
Yeah, and and something I know that we've talked about, I've heard other people talk about it on your show too, but I'll just reiterate it is I know I could have learned all that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to. You know, I mean, it's just if because the way I write, how long it takes me in between books. So there's 7 years between books, right? Do you think any of this is going to be the same in 7 years? So
No,
so
yeah.
so it's not like if I learned it, I could just repeat it. Just pick it
Hmm.
back up. Yeah. So I it was just you need to make decisions about what you can do and what you want to do and what you maybe is best to leave to the professions. So
Very wise words of wisdom there. Yes, like, learn what you can, but you don't have to do it all yourself. There's other people out there that you can invest with that can
mhm.
help you through the process. Fantastic advice. Now, you mentioned you decided to go the independent publishing route with this book. Why did you make that decision to switch? Because you were with the publisher for the first two.
Yes, basically, the publisher was very small press. In episode 42, I talked about all the good things, and so the president was kind of just going in a different direction. He's become a mental health professional, and that's his full time job. So it wasn't going to move at the speed of what I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
And also, honestly, I have to say, because I listened to your podcast so much, kept hearing over and over again, all these other people could do it, and I'd been in business at that point for 7 years. I'd figured out a lot of things in business kind of things, and I kind of knew the marketing, and I just said, what, I think I can do this, and I was almost like a proof of concept, see if I could do it, and I did. So
Fantastic.
yeah, I started my own publishing company, Veterans Publishing, which I was shocked that name wasn't taken.
I know, I am shocked too. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, that it falls so beautifully under the company that you own. Valerie is the CEO of her own company, Veteran Writing Services. So now that you have Veteran Publishing, I mean, you can even open the door to having other people's books come and fall
Mhm.
under your publishing company. I mean, there's so much possibility there. That's exciting. Now, I have to ask you. Okay, so you went from working with a publisher to doing it yourself. It wasn't as hard as you thought it would be, was it? Or how did the experience come out for you at the end?
I liked having the control.
Mhm.
That was the overall, and, setting the deadlines and knowing when I had to be done and knowing I could make decisions. And the other thing is knowing when I made those decisions, I owned them.
Mhm.
So if it is a bad decision, it's on me. So that part I really liked. And I actually liked the learning part of it. And again, there's so much advice out there and so many things. And you pick up something here and something there and take a note. And it was rarely that I got to a point where I said, like, I just don't know what to do next. It was great and to start with somebody else helping me, lead me along the way. And I'm very grateful for that. And no, that I always will be.
Mhm.
But there comes a time where you can also say, okay, the training wheels are off. I think I can do it.
Fantastic. Good for you. And it sounds like you did all the right things by educating yourself and figuring out what to do. And I always like to say, don't look at the whole big picture. Take a baby step and a baby step and a baby step and a baby step. And then all of a sudden you have a book. Learn what you need to learn and ask for help along the way. And you did that. So congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned it was 7 years between the last book in the series and this one. What inspired you to pick up the pen and start this series after that long of a break?
You.
And you sent me an email about this before. I just think that is so lovely, and I'm
Yeah,
touched. But
yeah. It actually is you. And I'll just tell the listeners, I was getting ready for my first interview 2 years ago. You asked me all these terrific questions and, really made me think. And I just started thinking it. And I'd always said, boy, if I had thought about it better, I could have maybe, set up the series. But when I started, I only thought I was going to write one book, ended up writing two. But then it just came to me when I was answering these questions. I was like, you know what? I've got an idea. she's going to follow up on, we're going to hear the stories of what happened to all the rescue horses along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like, it wasn't that hard to, it just took me a while to think about it. And also I've been listening to your podcast, and I've just gotten a little more motivated on the creative side. And but I mentioned too, my business, I started my business in 2014. And everything was about the business, and it's, I do technical writing and work mostly for defense contractors. And I was just really, really focused on that. And by 2 years ago, I'd been in business long enough where I'd sort of figured out enough things. I had my business processes down. I wasn't writing an invoice for the first time, all these things that take time when you're creating a business. And I had good clients that I said, okay, well, now I have some repeat business. And I said, I can carve out some time because my books are in part of my business, but it was always just kind of like almost like a very small part of the business. So I decided that I could carve out a little bit more time.
That is fantastic, and thank you for your kind words. It's always nice to get that kind of feedback. But I'm honored that our interview inspired you to pick up the pen again and get this book going. And did you find it hard to start the book, like start writing again and reconnect with your characters as after having had such a long break? Was it hard to start that process again, or?
No, not really. I mean, I did definitely had to reread the books, and, and just say, okay, let me get everything straight. And I took all kinds of notes and everything because it's funny because when you just get done with a book, and I'm sure the other authors out there can relate to this, like you just feel like every word in that book, and you're never going to ever forget it. But it's funny, you go back and you read it, and you're like, oh, I forgot about that. So I did have to do that, but the thing is, I think I know my characters well enough that picking up where they left off but it is my main character, Sadie. She ages in this, right? So she starts at 12, she turns 13, she turns 14. So people, particularly at that age, you change a little bit. So parts of the character change. So I didn't have too hard of a time with that. And also, I do a lot of writing besides my, technical writing and work writing. I do a lot of belong to writing groups. I do prompts. I write short stories for other books and magazines, and write articles for magazines. So it's not like I just didn't pick up the pen. I just hadn't been writing on these books. So, and also I love creating new characters. And so there was a lot of new characters in this book, and a lot of them were based on people that I knew, that I met at dude ranches and things like that. So that was very fun to kind of create some of those new characters that are, small characters, but maybe make an impression in somebody's mind.
And they certainly did. I love the new characters and the rules that you gave them and their behaviors. It was very, very fun. And then how did you research for this book? I think you mentioned you've been to dude ranches. So obviously that was part of the pie. It was putting that together. But how did you make sure you were in the right space with the Western lingo?
Well, I love Western. I ride Western, and but since I grew up in Maryland, Maryland is I started English as a kid, and when I came back from California, I in 2004, pretty much English in dressage sense, except for trail riding. I still do Western trail riding, and I did spend 1 year showing Lucky Western pleasure and Western horsemanship.
Oh, cool.
At that big show place arena up there. Yeah, because he was 4, and and remember I talked about the challenging young horse.
Yes.
So and I thought, well, maybe it'll be a little easier to start him, with something a little saddle a little sturdier, and maybe something a little less challenging. And the classes were much smaller, and I liked Western, and he looked great. He's a tricolor pinto. So I'm actually a certified CHA certified riding instructor in Western, beginning Western. So I know the parts of the saddle and how to sit and that kind of thing. But I did go to a number of dude ranches and ride across. When I was in the Navy, moving from place to place to place. So usually if you're going somewhere to rent a horse, they're going to throw you in a Western saddle too. And definitely the dude ranches. And the 3 that I didn't realize I was doing research on at the time, but I went on a cattle drive in Canada.
So cool.
And so actually the Mac, the kind of main guy, he in Believing in Horses Out West, that he's modeled after that after that owner. And I went on I went to Rancho, Montana, and then I went on the Red Rock Ride in out west in Utah, and you go to Bryce Canyon, Grand Canyon, all this. It's just phenomenal, unbelievable. It takes like 2 years to get into it because so many people want to do it. So a lot of the research was there. I mean, I didn't know it at the time that I was doing research, but it was I remember it because it was so unforgettable. So, and then also I did online research about rodeos. That was one of my real I mean, I've been to rodeos, but that was some of my real lack of knowledge. So I phoned a friend.
Nice.
and I knew that you had done, obviously I've read your books. They're great. And, all that Western stuff and rodeo. And I knew that was your discipline. And I also knew that you'd started doing the writing coaching business. So I asked, is it possible if you could take a look at this manual? Well, I asked you to look at a couple specific spots in there where I knew I just wasn't sure I had the terminology correct. I'm going to try, but then you went ahead and you looked at it and you wanted to make sure that to get it all in context. So you read the whole manuscript. So short little commercial for Carly. She was fantastic to work with, and just made it all so easy, and went above and beyond. And that's I recommend somebody if you're doing the same thing, because horse people can sometimes be horse people, right? Mm-hmm. I remember reading something once about somebody got something wrong in a book, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is before the whole cancel culture thing, and you would have thought that this was just the most heinous thing ever. So you want to make sure you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you want to make sure you're not saying anything that's just too off base. So if you don't know about it, then get some help.
Absolutely. Great point. So if you're writing about horses and you're not sure about something, reach out, phone a friend, find somebody that can help you that knows that terminology, because I think I've mentioned this a couple of times before on the show, but we often grow up, or where you live kind of defines your language around horses. The discipline that you grow up with defines your language with horses. As I've been doing this podcast, there are so many different things we can be doing with horses, and each breed, each discipline has a completely different set of language or words that we use. So it's pretty fascinating, really. So you did the right thing. And I really enjoy working with you too, Valerie. I was honored that you reached out to me to take a look at the manuscript, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was glad I could be a help there. And I am so jealous that you've done all those amazing rides. I've been to Jackson Hole, and I've gone out with an outfit up into the Tetons and stuff, and that was amazing. But like a cattle drive, that's on my bucket list. The Red Ranch ride sounds
Red Rock
Ranch
ride.
Red Rock ride.
You're thinking of Brittany Joy's
I know,
series. Yeah, no, it's Red Rock Ride. Yeah, and it's they pick you up in Las Vegas, and you go to it's unbelievable.
I'm going to put my name on the waiting list. It sounds incredible.
And then Adam could go with you too.
Oh,
because,
great.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not. There was a guy there who had never ridden at all.
Oh wow!
Never, and that's why I put that character in my book. So I mean, it is better if he can ride, and I know he does ride. But what I'm saying is, it's not like you don't have to be a super show rider,
like a super experienced rider. Yeah, that is so great to know. How exciting. And that's another thing too. It's like you never really know what experiences in life you'll go back to from your past as you're writing books. I mean, all of that served you very well as you were thinking about the storyline for your next book. So that worked out wonderfully. And you are doing very, very well with this book. Talk to us about some of the positive news that has happened around Believing in Horses Out West. I know there's some awards.
Yeah, it's been good. I've got a first place at the National Federation of Press Women for the book for young adult fiction. So it was the first place. And when I say at large, I don't know if you know about National Federation of Press Women, but different states have chapters. And then I'm in the at-large category because my state doesn't have a chapter. So you compete against like 18 other states and District of Columbia and the international people. And so it won first place. So I was very excited about that.
Wow.
And right, so then it moved to the national competition. I also wrote a short story that I submitted for that, and it was called "Be Brave," and it was about Pony Express Rider, and that one won first place in that communications at large contest for single short stories, whatever. Believing in Horses Out West also won a second place in the Book Fest Spring 2022 awards, and it was a finalist in the International Wishing Shelf Book Awards, which are really neat because those kids judge that, and the kids of the UK judge that. So
Aw.
I found it interesting that this book about here the American West would resonate with these kids. So that was good, and it was a Amazon #1 new release on the day it launched, and it was also a Blaze magazine for kids Goodreads. So it's had a little bit of exposure.
Like, that has got to make you feel wonderful to get that kind of feedback on a book that you hadn't touched a series in 7 years, and here it is, really really resonating and being successful. What would you say about what awards? Why are awards important to an author?
Well, they're important for basically to help you get the word out about your book. First of all, that's to me is probably the most important, because every time you win an award you can send out a press release, or you can put a little sticker on the cover. And I've been surprised at book signings and things how many people are impressed by a shiny little gold sticker on a cover, or when you award-winning author or award-winning book. So it just gives it a little bit of oomph.
Hmm.
But also it's just kind of nice. Writing could be kind of lonely, and we don't. You remember I was saying about things like you own it. You're not really sure. Oh gosh, is anybody gonna like this? My friends like it, my family likes it, but
Yeah.
but it's nice to know when some kind of external body likes it. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's really good feedback for the author, and yes, those little shiny stickers sure do make a difference at a book signing, and you can do that when you've won awards. And then what would you say to an author that maybe is nervous about submitting their book for awards? And how do you decide what you want to submit your books for?
those are both two really good questions. What have you got to lose? I guess would be unless it's the fee, right?
Hmm.
Like I do remember someone recommended, and actually she was a publisher, and she recommended I submit my book to the Mom's Choice Book Awards years ago. And I think it was my second book. I looked at it, it's $500.
Mm.
And I said, that's a lot of money to, and am I really, what the return on investment of books is, right? I mean,
Oh, definitely.
I appreciated her suggestion, but I just said, that's just, I'm not interested. But you really can't lose, and you're normally going to get feedback. Most get feedback, some don't, but there's also different sites you can go to that say, ones to like Writer Beware,
Mm.
Victoria Strauss's site, that kind of say, hey, don't go after this one. It's just a scam, or it's yeah, everybody's a winner, depending on what you want. So I don't know. I would say that there's not really too much to lose except for whatever the entry fee is.
Yeah, yeah. So it's so there it isn't it can be an investment, and obviously do your research and find out if it's a credible organization. And often they do, they'll write up a sheet and give you, feedback on the book so you can understand. So but that's great. It's like awards are a nice way to build your resume when you're an
Mhm.
author and have something to talk about, and you get that shiny little sticker for the front of your books.
Yeah.
In your opinion, I think this is an interesting question. What do you think makes a book stand out? Like your book, any book, what do you think makes a book stand out so can be an award-winning book, or so readers are really engaged with it? What do you think are a couple important things?
Say a few things, and one of them is originality, and
Mm.
and characters that people can relate with, and emotion. When you can touch somebody's emotions, when you can touch a reader's emotions. But so that's all the sort of creative side of it. But I'd say the other side too is really the writing side and the editing side. So making sure you have all the elements of the story in there, that you're not missing something along the way. making sure that it's very well edited,
Mhm.
making sure that it's not repetitive and this kind of thing. And this book, interestingly, again, I, I I'm not a technical person per se, but I'm not a dinosaur either. So I did try different programs to see what may work, may be interesting. Like for instance, I know people love Scrivener. I tried it years ago. It didn't work the way my brain worked, and
I
it
had a
didn't
hard
work.
time with that too. Yeah.
Yeah, so but obviously it works for a lot of people. But I tried a program called Plotter this time,
Hmm.
Plottr. That was kind of fun. It set you up like it has all these different ways to do things. So, like, let's say you're writing the hero's journey. That's what my books are, the hero's journey kind of story, and it sort of gives you the steps along the way. And so you're saying, okay, well, I'm missing one, and who are the characters here, and what's the scene, and what's the setting, and it was very fun way to kind of outline and organize. That was helpful. And also, I used a program called AutoCrit, and I absolutely love this program. AutoCrit was very helpful and really helped me find things like redundancies, and we all have our little favorite words and
Yes, I think gingerly is one of mine from my first book, I think.
I like really, but it's funny because it points these things out. It'll also show you passive voice, active voice, showing versus telling. Help me find some of those things in a very unemotional way. They also have a very fun like community,
Mhm.
like writers community. They do things all the time. They have a YouTube channel. They have workshops. They have it's. I wish I had more time.
Yeah, it's so funny. Valerie is amazing at sniffing out new opportunities or different things. Like she's lovely. She sends me emails. She's like, "Have you checked out this? Have you seen this?" So you always have your nose to the ground, sleuthing, like sniffing out like a detective dog, like new things to try. So thank you for mentioning those. I have
Yeah.
not heard of Plotter or AutoCrit, so I'm definitely
Well,
going to check those out.
I was an intelligence officer for 25 years. So
Well, that would explain it. So, because it had been so long between books, how did you do anything special to reach out to your readers this time around to let them know that the new book was coming?
I Facebook. I'm, in a bunch of different Facebook groups. Like, well, there's actually one for Red Rock Ride. There's one for Red Rock Ride 2013, which is the group I went with. And, so of course I tell them because I'm like, hey, some of you guys are characters in this book. Aging Horsewomen International, that Facebook group, and Sharon, the owner admin, whatever, she's fantastic. I knew her about horse books before she started the whole page, that kind of thing. So I did some, Facebook advertising, press releases, book signings.
You did a wonderful job. I mean, I am a member of AHP, American Horse Publications, as are you, and I know that you did a great job of informing through press releases how the book was doing. You know that you sent one out when it came, you sent one out
Mhm.
when it hit the bestseller list, you sent one out, and this was all time in between, of course, not back to back to
Mhm.
back. But then you sent out another press release when it won the awards.
Mhm.
So your visibility has been very good, and that's a very horsey community. Everyone,
Yeah.
and then
And yeah, and I saw that like Equimed had picked it up,
mhm,
that press release, so that's great. Again,
mhm,
that's just reaching more readers.
mhm.
And there's always more to do. I have a marketing plan. I have a very in-depth marketing plan for this book, and I kind of tick off things as I can. And I did reach out to people that I knew who had been readers in the past that I, personally knew. Also, some different platforms have different audiences. So I have a lot of very different group of people on LinkedIn because of that's more of my Navy background, my business background, that kind of thing. And so I put the thing about the awards. They don't care about a book trailer on LinkedIn, but but the awards you get some. And again, sometimes I get a lot of the people there. They're like, I didn't even know you wrote horse books. So I just try to get it out to as many different ways as possible. I actually did some ads this time. For Blaze magazine because they reached out to me in the fall, uh, just right about when the book came out, and so I did an ad. It was in the Christmas edition,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
yes, and it was nice because they actually did a whole feature that time about for kids, like about how to write your own horse stories and horse books, and
Oh,
so it's very it kind of touched. And then they reached out to me again and asked me if I wanted to advertise in the spring edition, and their specialty is dude ranches. So so I said, how can I not? So yeah, again, every now and then you have to. Well, you don't have to, but it can help if you spend a little money and see if you might get a little good greater reach. Oh, and I should say too, the Military Writers Society of America, we have a nice quarterly publication, and now that's a longer, bigger publication, and it's digital, and so I can send them a press release, and they'll just run the whole thing from start to finish, and they did. So
That's awesome. So you
yeah.
did a lot. I mean, the thing with advertising that's smart, it's like some advertising in print magazines still can be very reasonable, and you
Mhm.
pick the right spots to put your work. It's like you're not trying to get it in like People magazine or something like that. Like if you really niche down and you
Mhm.
find Blaze
Right.
magazine, which is a perfect audience for you, one, the Christmas edition, because books make great gifts, right? But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
also the spring edition that had a feature on dude ranches. It doesn't get any better than that.
Right. And I'll say this because I know this from Blaze Magazine because I used to to help at the summer camp at the barn behind me. Is that Blaze Magazine? It's this is again for your readers who authors who are writing for kids or
Mhm.
kids or young adult. Is that they take their old magazines that don't sell. I don't think there's a better way to say it, but they distribute them to people who have summer horse camps so
Oh,
that the
smart.
horse camps can give those to the kids when they come, and so what I'm saying is you kind of get like the spring edition this year's spring edition may be going to summer campers next year, so
Uh-huh.
you get sort of, you put an ad in and you're getting two sets of audiences there.
Yeah, that's perfect. So they repurpose their magazines.
Mhm.
That's wonderful, and they
Yeah.
get into the right hands yet again. I
Mhm.
love that. And I wanted to say too, here's to our friends in the horse community that lift us up. Here's to fellow authors, like you were talking about, Sharon, who has read your books and elevates them for you, which is fantastic within that Facebook group. I mean, who would we be without these wonderful, loyal supporters who have read our books
Mhm.
that help prop us up? I know you do that for me. I know you do that for other authors. You review other authors' books
Mhm. Mhm.
and share those very frequently through your social media channels and on your blog. I wanted to say, I just wanted to commend you because you're incredibly supportive of the other authors in our community, and you do it so well. And you're always sharing information, and you always send thank you emails, and you're just very gracious to work with and be friends with. So I just wanted to give you a little shout out for that. And I think we all would be in a better place if we all mimic that kind of behavior. So thank you for the things that you do for our community. Very, very
Thank you.
supportive.
Thank you.
And then what advice would you give yourself if you had to go back in time before you published your very first book?
I would say this is not just then, but also to people now. I would say there is so much advice out there and so much to read and so much to listen to and so much to take in.
Mhm,
So it's continuing education is very important, but I think it's also important to start somewhere and do something. Right.
mhm.
So just go with what you've got and realize that, I can look back at my first book and say, oh boy, like you said, the word gingerly, right? I could look back and say the same things and like, oh gosh, I could have done so much better. Well, okay, but it's a snapshot in time, right?
Mhm,
You do the best you can do at that point, and then okay, yes, I mean I've grown in 12 years as an author in between, and
mhm.
that's perfectly fine. I mean, I would rather have those 12 years in between and all the good things that have happened with that first little book than just to still be sitting here reading blog posts and emails and attending workshops about how I could be doing everything better. So
Mhm.
that's the advice.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to do it. Put your buns in the seat and put your
Mhm.
fingers on the keyboard and just start. And there's something to be said for first. You have to have that first in order to, like you said, get better as an author. And
Mhm.
each book you write, every writing project you take on, you get better and better and better. But everyone starts somewhere, and you have to start and just get that first out of the way. Once you do the first, rather than being the person that says, I want to write a book, you've written a book. Now you've got a
Mhm.
place to grow from. And once you've done it, you've done it. And then you can do it again, and you can do it
Mhm.
again, and you grow through the process. So that's really great advice. Now, I like to ask this one too. What's and I know you've made a lot of investments, but what's the best investment you think you've made so far in your writing career?
That would be attending the Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship conference and program. And that was an entrepreneur program, which was the 12-week program where you figure out the business and then go to a conference. And it's a very intense couple days, and try to sort of hone what it is that you've come up with as a business during that time. And then I'm still in the program. So there's a lot of resources available for the Institute for Veteran and Military Families at Syracuse University. So I say that's the best investment because I've alluded to this before, that writing books is a business, that's the way I see it. It's creative, yes, it's fun, and there's a lot of really really great things that are they're not business like about it, but it really helped me turn around the way I looked at things, and it's helped me with a lot of things, just accounting, looking at, again, return on investment. I talked about that too, and time management, deciding where I'm going to spend my time, because I do have a marketing plan, and it's a big long, if I was just concentrating only on the marketing plan and doing everything one thing at a time on that, I'd never get anything else done. So it's just, you have to figure out where to spend your time wisely, and where to spend your resources wisely. So that would be the best investment.
Yeah, it sounds like a great investment. And I like that you mentioned a couple times in the interview too, is like looking at what works for you and what doesn't, like, the competition, like you looked at that and you're like, that's, you can always go back to it. Right. But at the moment it's not working for you, and I would say that to any author. Try things. If it doesn't work for you, if it doesn't feel good, you don't have to do it. If you don't like having a email newsletter, and it's just something you don't want to do, don't do it. Like, focus on your writing. It's like, this is all about getting books out into the world. Try things on. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. Like, if you think you should be on TikTok and you try it and you don't like it, you don't have to do it. There's lots of ways to reach readers, and you don't have to be everywhere at all times, burning yourself, at both ends of the candle in order to have a successful career. I think it just has to feel good, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I couldn't have said it better myself, because the Instagram, I'm still having and it's just not my thing. And actually, video, here I am, but it is not my favorite. I see you doing videos all the time. I see others doing videos. It's just not me, and I think that comes across, right? When you're doing things that you don't feel, authentic or good about it, it shows.
We talked about your wonderful series. You're already plotting out, the next 2 books in the series, where you're going. Anything else that you're curious about with your writing career, or just in general? Or what are you up to? What are you thinking?
It's funny you ask, because I had a poem I wrote actually about, I think, 2 years ago now, and I had it published in a book last year, and I think it would make a really good song.
Oh.
And that's something that I've always wanted to do, is write a song. So I've looked at some of these songwriting workshops and things like that. So that's kind of on my back burner thing. It's just something fun, and definitely not business wise. It's just something I want to do.
Fantastic. And I love the thing about a song. I always say, if there's like this little spark and it's kind of calling you forward, that's absolutely what you have to go for. And I can't wait to hear how that goes, and I can't wait to hear it. How exciting. What a fun new avenue to try, like a whole little bit of a different part of your brain. I can just imagine you sitting in a studio and somebody's playing the guitar, or maybe do you play an instrument?
I don't, and but I love music, and you may remember there's a little song, and the girl writes songs in this book, and believing in a horse. And I just I jotted that down in about 2 minutes. So I figured, well, maybe there's something. I could try it, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. And it's veteran related, so I think it probably resonates with a lot of people too.
Oh, definitely. Well, I can't wait to hear more about how that develops. And that's another thing to put under your veteran publishing hub. You have a song arm also. That's so cool. And Valerie, again, thank you for coming on the show again and sharing all these exciting updates and all the wonderful advice. Would you let listeners know where they can find more information about you and your books?
Yes, at www.believinginhorses.com. And I also have a blog at ValerieOrmond.com. So, and the Facebook, and I think all the others are in the show notes. All the links to everywhere else. But
Absolutely. Yes. I'll put everything where you can get to Valerie and her books in the show notes. And then all the amazing resources and information she mentioned, I'll put in the show notes, along with the amazing pictures that she sent over to me. So you can get to know Valerie even better. But Valerie, thank you so much for the gift of your time and for coming on the show. And and I know videos like not your favorite, but you're doing a great job. And I really appreciate you doing that for me. Thank you.
thank you for the time. And I like I said, I hope you continue your podcast for as long as you can, because it's a tremendous resource, and I know I enjoy listening to it and watching it when I can.
Oh, thank you so much for the feedback. And yes, I really enjoy this. So I intend on continuing as long as people are listening. Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and riding, just like me. Visit my website, carlycadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlycadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlycadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Cade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.